Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm going to give you guys a bit of an update on my Blackwing deck for the Edison format 2010. So this week in Sacramento, um, Edison's been pretty much popping off, more so than the main event actually, as I've seen more videos on Edison than I did on the actual current format. And that could be because the current format is kind of stale and people are waiting for a new ban list, and no one really cares to see Fiend Smith and um, Snake Eyes pop off all the time, or just Tenpai just OTKing. Gets kind of boring. So I've seen a lot more coverage on Edison, so I thought I'd do a little bit of an update on my Edison deck. Now, granted, I haven't played too much Edison lately, um, but I still practice from here, or from time to time with my friends, and we've been kind of just seeing what works and what hasn't. So yeah, just giving a bit of an update on the deck, plus to maybe help put some stuff out there, more information on Blackwings. So I do believe Blackwings is probably the best deck in Edison. Just overall the most consistent deck. There's really no bad matchups for it. It doesn't really struggle with anything. The most thing I think the thing that struggles most with is actually not seeing enough monsters sometimes, since a lot of the cards were either limited or not or banned or whatever, right? So yeah, I just want to talk about the deck, and then, yeah, we'll go from there. All right, so if you haven't noticed, most of my deck is actually from LC5D, so quite some expensive stuff in here. I bought these cards way back when the set first came out for like on pennies on the dollar. So um, this deck nowadays is worth quite a bit just because of some of the rare cards. And it's not completely max rarity out either, because I left most of the max rarity cards in my binder. But yeah, in case you see some cards here. Anyways, first off, the Triple Shirako, probably your most basic normal summon. Yeah, I think you gotta definitely play 3 of him. Works well with Vayu, uh, and then works really well against the mirror match, so not much to really say. Triple Shura, my favorite Blackwing card of the bunch. Um, yep, and then Triple Bora, your other good Blackwing here. Triple Kalute, and then double Blizzard. So here's where it kind of deviates. A lot of people like playing triple Blizzard. I don't really like triple Blizzards all that much, namely because I am also main decking Royal Oppression. Some people have cut out Royal Oppression from their main deck, have moved it to the side deck, or just playing one Oppression in the main. I'm still playing 2 Oppressions because I think it's still really good seeing against a lot of matchup, even against their mirror match. Sometimes if you can establish a big monster, like an armor master or arm wing, and you have Clute in hand, you basically gonna negate their Blizzard plays. You're gonna negate a bunch of other plays. The only plays they really have at that point then is to either have Clute in hand to fight your big monsters, or have a Shirako. But yeah, so since I'm playing Royal Oppression, I'm doing 2 Blizzards. The other issue with Blizzards is if you don't have your graveyard set up, sometimes it's just not that great. And with the lower monster count of Blackwings in the deck, sometimes you'll just draw multiple copies of Blizzard and you won't be able to really do too much with it. So I decided to just go with 2 Blizzards. I've always been comfortable with 2 Blizzards, but I know a lot of people have been trying to max out on triple Blizzard, but um, I think that's okay if you're not playing Royal Oppression in the main, but since I am, I'm playing only 2. Then you have the 1 Gale and 1 Vayu. Um, so double Vayu is good um, if you want to go for a sort of a grind game. However, what I found was that you end up drawing a second Vayu most of the time, or open up with a Vayu in your hand. It's kind of dead. Now it's less dead when you have Icarus, but at the same time, I really don't like to summon Vayu because it doesn't really do anything at all. So you summon Vayu and you get Icarus, sure. Also, I guess Vayu works well if you are trying to chain block the oppression. So you go, for example, Blizzard, and you have Whirlwind out. You can go Blizzard, activate effect, then chain the Whirlwind to search Vayu. Then you can kind of block the Royal Oppression effect, but um, I don't think that's such a huge deal that you have to play 2 Vayu. The most beneficial thing about Vayu is if you can get it out with Shura, but sometimes I'm not really looking to get out Shura. Sometimes I'm trying to go for either a Kalut or a Gale, just to be bodies on the board and to have higher attack than just 800, just to deal damage. And then yeah, from there I would just maybe synchro with them or sack them off with Icarus attack. So I think one Vayu is fine. Two is also okay, but from my experience, I think one is okay. Next off, then the last two monsters I got, I have Dark Arm Dragon and Kaiku. Not much to say about Dark Arm. Kaiku's been pretty good. It's good against a lot of matchups. Good against Frogs, the Mirror, Vayu Turbo. Um, any deck that really requires the graveyard. Good against Dark Arm also. Like when they summon out Dark Arm, they have to try to run over Kaiku to do anything. But yeah, Kaiku is really nice in that sense. The one thing I don't like about Kaiku is that because your deck is very normal summon heavy, you can't. Sometimes it's awkward. You have to choose either summon out a Kaiku or you summon a Blackwing monster. But I think as a one of, it's fine. You just summon this thing, set a couple D Prison, a couple Book of Moons, and sometimes you can just lock down the game from there if you just keep attacking with Caillou and getting rid of the graveyard, and not allowing him to basically combo off with Bayou or Dark Armor Dragon. Then yeah, Kaiku's kind of pretty good utility card. So yeah, we got 18 monsters there, pretty standard I think. All right, for the spells we got double whirlwind, and then I know a lot of people cut out Book of Moon. I still like Book of Moon, so I'm playing two. And what I like about Book of Moon is that sometimes it saves you against something like a brain control, saves you against enemy controller. So there's still interactions where something like D Prison can't stop. And the fact that Book of Moon is also chainable to a lot of things, that's really nice. So I think Book of Moon should still be played, but I know a lot of people cut it out. The other thing I like about Book of Moon is if you just set Book of Moon and pass, maybe you go first, you draw a Shirako, and you don't have any other monsters in hand or any other ways to play, you can just set Book. They summon a monster, you can book it, then summon your Shirako, then run it over. That's kind of nice. Because if this was D Prison, then they would not have a monster on the board. If you D Prison their monster, then your Shirako is still dead in hand. So Book of Moon kind of allows that sort of play. Also allows you to basically make Shura a lot more alive. So if you Book of Moon like a really weak monster or something like that, summon Shura, run it over, get your Vayu, get your Gale or Kalut. So Book I think still is a pretty decent card. If you're running the Jar of Greed, the Yaga Legacy of Yagresu, then yeah, you would probably cut Book and play that instead. But I still like Book of Moon overall. It's really good against something like stopping Stardust Dragon. Like our deck kind of has an issue with stopping Stardust Dragon or things like that in general, where they summon that and our removal is something like Icarus Attack or Mirror Force or Trenchant, then you're kind of stuck. Because then the only other way to remove Stardust Dragon would be through like a Kalut or a Gale or maybe a D Prison. But if they're a really good player, they should be able to read those and they wouldn't just attack into you. And so if you're stuck on trying to remove a Stardust Dragon, Book of Moon does that pretty well. You just book the Stardust, then you can pop it with Icarus. You can maybe run it over. So yeah, a couple of things you can do with Book of Moon that D Prison can't solve. Also pretty good against something like Vanity's Fiend or maybe even a Fossil Dyna if for some reason you need a special summon spam the board. But if you do book a Fossil Dyna, they can pop your special summon monsters, so just be careful about that. Also good for getting rid of Consecrated Light. So yeah, there's a couple of things I think Book is really handy for. And if you're playing with against Skill Drain or something like that, you need your effect to go off. You can also book your own monster. So overall, I think the utility of Book of Moon is still there. It's not as strong as before, but it's still really good. And just overall great for disrupting your opponent's synchro plays too. If they're trying to go Mali into Plague, you can book the Mali. Now they're just stuck with a Plague on the board, or you book the Plague, whatever, right? So you book one or the other, makes their board a lot more awkward. They can't fill up the graveyard. Or if they have a battle recruiter and they're trying to run things over, maybe they got like tomato or pyramid turtle, you just book it. Maybe you can deal with it some other way than um, um, like popping it with Icarus or something like that. But yeah, so Book of Moon, I think is still pretty decent. And for the rest of the staples here, we have basically just heavy Mystic, Allure, and Brain Control. And then finally, we have the Dark Eruption here, just a one of. So this is kind of like my replacement for Blizzard. What I like about this more than I like about playing a third Blizzard is just that you can grab a Gale back, you can grab a Blizzard back, or you can grab a Kalute back if you wanted to. Any of those are just, utility. And just like Blizzard, this requires your graveyard to be set up a little bit, and it is kind of weak to DD Crow. For the most part, though, most people aren't going to be siding in DD Crow against a Blackwing deck. They'll definitely do it against the Value Turbo, but maybe not pure Blackwings. So I don't expect to really get punished for playing Dark Eruption versus playing a third Blizzard into like a Oppression build or something like that. So yeah, Dark Eruption there, and then finally for the traps we have the triple Icarus attack here, double D prison, double book or sorry double bombless there. I'm still on the Royal Oppression and Judgment. Now, obviously, they have their weaknesses and strengths. Because Oppression's a lot weaker against Blackwings and other value turbo decks. A lot of people have been cutting this out and citing it. I think it's still pretty decent playing against most other matchups. I still like to see this at least one copy and set it just to protect myself. If they pop it with a Dust Tornado or MST, then it's just a 1-for-1. So it's not too bad. Judgment, I still like Judgment just because you're able to protect yourself from Heavy Storm. Granted, if you use this really early in the game, it can kill you pretty quickly. So if you're playing against another Blackwing deck, they can just pump Shirako and just run you over if you activate this without really thinking. So Judgment, I think still good. If you have Temple, this gives you Temple control. Or if you're behind, maybe it might be able to help you. If they're going for a greedy play, they're trying to synchro, you can just solve the synchro play. But yeah, I think overall Judgment's still worth playing. I still keep it in my deck. And then finally we have the rest of the staples, the one-ofs, the Mirror Force, Dust Shoot, and Trenchel. Now Trenchel, some people also cut out, but I still like it just because if they're greedy, you can definitely punish them, especially the frog decks. You can punish their swap frog plays and things like that. Or if they're Blackwings and they're trying to swarm the board, if they're not really careful with that, you can also punish them. Just overall, I think it's still good, and it's still a decent one-for-one removal, if anything. So I still play the one Trenchel Tribute there. For side deck, let's talk about that real quick. So we got two Cyber Dragons just to play against the machine decks. We do have Fortress in our side deck. I was playing one in the main, but I felt like I didn't really care for it too much in the main, namely because I also playing Shirako, so I had to choose between specialing Cyber Dragon or summoning Shirako, in which both instances I think neither one is better than the other per se. I guess Cyber Dragon is better in that sense, where you can summon Cyber Dragon, summon Shura, but you can kind of do that with Shirako anyways, because you can go Shirako into a Bora or into a Gale. But I think in the side deck, I think it's fine. Maybe even just cutting it down to one is probably okay. But in the mirror match, I think it's pretty good because you can run over Shirako, you can run over Shuras. Obviously, if they have Kalute, different story. But I think overall, Cyber Dragon in the side's fine. And then we have the two DD Crows for our Grave Hate, along with Kaiku, obviously. Now, Crow, it's one of those cards where you have to draw early, otherwise it's kind of dead. We do have Icarus attacks, though, so it helps with getting rid of dead Crows. But Crow, I think, is a nice backup with Kaiku, namely because, like I said, with our deck being so normal summon heavy, we can't always have Graveyard Interruption readily with Kaiku. So having a crow as backup is kind of nice, and I think 2 is okay. So hopefully with 2 you see them when you need them, but obviously they can become dead after a certain point in the game. But since we have Icarus attack, I think it's fine at 2. And then we have Fossil Dyna. I think this is namely just going to be for the frog matchup. And you can also set it and then have them attack into Dyna. So that's what I've been doing mostly, is just setting it. I don't really like just summoning out Fossil Dyna, in attack position, because it gets run over really easily, especially if you don't have any back row to back it up. But you have D Prison, you have Mirror Force, I guess, or Book of Moon, pretty good. That's also another thing to consider, is Book of Moon works really well with Fossil Dyna. So they declare attack on Fossil Dyna, you can book it, and then the attack goes through, you flip it, and you just pop their whole board. So that's something Book of Moon also does. That's kind of nice. So yeah, we got the Fossil Dyna here. And then finally we have a Juju Master. Now, a lot of people have been playing Raikou in the side. So what you do with Raikou is if you have Mind Control here, you go Mind Control a hamster, you flip the hamster, you grab the Raikou. I found that it's kind of situational. That doesn't really happen that often. So I decided not to play Raikou. I'm playing Jujutsu Master instead. What I like about Jujutsu Master is it works under skill drain. So if you don't know the interaction with this, is if they say you have skill drain on the board, they attack Jujutsu Master with, I don't know, something like Stardust Dragon. It gets run over, it dies. Its effect activates at the end of the damage step. So at the end of the damage step, this is already considered off the field. And so its effect will still trigger under skill drain. Skill drain won't negate Juju Master as it's dying. So you'll still be able to bounce back the Stardust Dragon or whatever ran it over. Or if anything, if you have skill drain plus this, 18 defense, still pretty good. Won't die to most normal summons, unless they're summoning like Thunder King, or they're summoning Alias or a Shirako. Yeah, Juju Master will kind of stop that. And the fact that it top decks the card that attacks into it is very big, especially in Edison. If your opponent just doesn't expect this thing, it will wreck them. It'll set them back a turn and a summon, and that's really big in Edison. So that's why I still like the Juju Master. And since our deck doesn't really set a lot, they kind of have to figure out what is face down. A lot of people expect the Fossil Dyna. Face down, if you're playing Blackwings, it's either usually Fossil Dyna set face down, or a Raikou. In our case, if we're setting a Juju Master and they attack into it without really thinking, they get super punished for it. They sometimes summon like a Kalud, or they summon Boar, or even a Shura, right? And they go, okay, I'm just gonna run this over, and then if it's Fossil Dyna or whatever, they'll be okay with it. And they run into like a Juju Master, and it just like screws up their plan quite a bit. Another thing I like about Juju Master and Fossil Dyna is that they're Earth types. So if they're playing Consecrated Light, you can just normal summon this thing, beat over Consecrated Light. I've done that multiple times too, and it's just kind of funny. Another thing you can do with Juju Master is if they attack Juju Master, you can Book a Moon with this thing. Oops. So if it's in attack mode, they attack into it, you Book a Moon, they flip it face up, their monster's gone now. So just another thing that, Book a Moon does, kind of, I guess, Book a Moon tricks, is with either Juju Master or Fossil Dyna. I like that. Or, I mean, this could also be Raikou. You flip this face up, right? You pop a card, you mill 3. They attack Raikou, you book Raikou, you flip it face up, you pop another card. So that's why I still like the Book of Moon. It's just for those type of effects. There, also I mentioned one Mind Control there. And then we have Barrier's Shield and Giant Trunade. Barrier's Shield is pretty decent in the mirror match, still pretty decent against a lot of other things. Okay against JD, although it costs quite a lot of life points, so I don't know if you want to still play, but I found that it's still pretty good. Good against Trenchel, Boundless, Mirror Force, Icarus Attack, Spark, Gemini Spark, just a bunch of random stuff that just destroys. My body has been really good against. Or even like a Raikou, they flip a Raikou and try to pop something, you can just my body it. Now, I believe my body doesn't work during the damage step from per Edison rules, I believe. Obviously, with the modern um, way that negation works, my body would work during the damage step since it actually negates that activation and destroys the card. So, yeah, my body's still pretty decent. True Nade, I think you can probably play Dust Tornado over True Nade. I don't have a Dust Tornado, so I'm still playing the True Nade. I still like True Nade in some sense where if you're going second, you can just True Nade or Heavy, obviously. But with True Nade, you can just True Nade their entire back row and then just proceed to set up yours. Hopefully, you don't get like interrupted too badly. But yeah, I still like True Nade. And True Nade's also pretty decent against a lot of the common strategy now of setting upstart, setting, um, you know, or sorry, not upstart, Jar of Greed or Yada Legacy. So if they're doing that, if they're going first and set a bunch of that, you can just True Nade. They can of course chain to it. They can just get their draws and whatnot. But what True Nade does is it clears up your board. You don't have to guess what they have down there anymore. You don't have to just blind MST or blind heavy. I mean, I guess you can still technically blind heavy, right? But True Nade is nice in the sense that it won't trigger something like a Stardust or Starlight Road. It won't trigger a couple other different cards versus something like a Dust Tornado. If you play Dust Tornado, you're going first. It's great. If you're going second, not so good. You set that and you activate it and you chain to like you target one in the back row and they chain like a Yada, then you're down one card. Like, that kind of hurts. So there's pros and cons about it. I'm still keeping it aside for going second against certain decks. And then we have the one Starlight Road here. Just good for against the mirror match, good against JD, a couple other things. Force your opponent to play or tread carefully, otherwise they get punished for just trying to um, wipe your back row or wipe your monsters without thinking. And then finally, we have two deck dev and two skill drain. Um, yeah, not much to really say about deck dev. A lot of people are currently actually maining one of these. They'll play like two Icarus and one deck dev. I personally don't like playing in the main deck because not every um, deck dev will hit or at least do a lot of work with. I prefer just maintaining control of the board versus trying to attack the hand. Granted, deck dev does maintain control of the board in the sense that it does check the face down monsters or monsters that are currently on the board. And I guess if you hit their hand, you can kind of control it. But I guess there's times where I'm not too sure if deck dev would do enough if I sacrifice my Scirocco or whatever. Also, I'm only playing one Bayu, so getting out the free arm wing to deck dev is a little bit more difficult um, to do. So hence why I'm still citing it. But yeah, the other way to activate deck dev is if they attack and you collude, or you attack and you collude, you can still deck dev that monster because it retains the attack points until the end of the turn via collude's effect. So deck dev is pretty easy to meet its requirement. Same thing with I think eradication virus or eradicator virus epidemic. But I think hitting spells and traps are not as impactful compared to hitting monsters in Edison. So I think deck dev should be definitely a two in the side, or even one in the main. But for me, a two in the side here. And finally, we got skill drain. Skill drain still one of my favorite um, floodgates in this format. Works really well against basically everything, except for obviously the mirror match. You don't really want to side this against the mirror match or Bayou Turbo. But if you side this against frogs, you side against light swarms, even does a lot of work. Just make sure you have something to be able to beat down their big monster. But playing Blackwings, you don't really have that issue of usually you're the one controlling the biggest monster on the board. So skill drain works really well in that sense, and you don't really need any of your effects, honestly. So that's why I think skill drain is still a really good floodgate for Edison. Finally, the extra deck is just a bunch of more or less pretty staple cards here, so not much to say. So you got one Chimera Tech, the one Mistworm. I think Mistworm is still nice to have. There are times where I summon it. I have something like Kalut, Bora, and maybe like a Blizzard, and I'm just going for a game, or they don't have any back row. I was like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna go Mist Worm, bounce whatever, summon another monster, whatever, and attack, and just go for game. Assuming that you're not running into Gores, but otherwise I think Mist Worm's got its utilities. Obviously, this would be better if it was Trishula, but yeah. Then we have Thought Ruler. Then we have Dark End. Just the generic 8s here. Yeah, not much to say about that. Then for our 7s, we're only playing one Armor Master, one Black Rose. Armor Master is definitely hard to bring out nowadays. I almost never go into the second copy. If I go to the first, even going into the first copy is already hard enough. So Armor Master almost never going into. Hence why I'm just playing the one. Because we're only playing one Vayu, one Gale, it becomes a lot more difficult to go into. Yes, we're playing the Eruption, so there may be possibility of going to it twice, but that hasn't really come up. So I think one Armor Master is good enough. You don't really need the two. Back when Gale was at 3, definitely 2 to 3 Armor Master was like the mandatory, but with Gale at 1, I think just one Armor Master is good enough. For our 6s, we got the usual. We got the 2 Armwings, the Goyle Guardian, and then Brionac. And then finally, for our 5s, we have the 1 Android and the 1 Catastor here. Yeah, so pretty standard side or extra deck. I don't think there's anything too controversial about this, except for maybe the Mistworm. If there's a card you're like cut, you could cut Mistworm for a second Armor Master. If you're not playing Cyber Dragon, you can cut the Fortress for a Mistworm or another Armor Master, or you can play the Red Archfiend Dragon. That's another option there. But no, even with 8s, I'd rarely go into 8s. Gale is your best bet, honestly. Gale and Shirako is your best bet to get into the 8s. And even then, we don't really go into them. The one I do go into, if I go into 8s at all, is Dark End and maybe Stardust. Everything else is kind of optional. It rarely comes up. And yeah, the thing that we go into the most is probably going to be the Goyle, the Armwings, and maybe the Magical Android, just for the high attack. All right, guys, that's basically it. Not much to say. I do want to go out and play a little bit more Edison, since it's been doing pretty popular at the YCSs, more so than the main events. And yeah, it's still a fun format. I think the other format I'm kind of getting to is Clown Dolls, or Clown Necros, which is pretty interesting format since we have some broken stuff going on in there. Obviously, with the clown format, I think the Jin and a couple of things are banned, but overall, I think that's another skillful format. I think Hat's also coming up. I don't really have a Hat deck yet. I do have a majority of the Hat cards, like the Sanctums, Ice Fire Hand, Trap Tricks, and all that other jazz. So maybe I'll make a Hat deck next. But yeah, for now, this is just my Edison deck, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. See you guys next time.